हरि ओं नमः सर्वेभ्यः। अद्य व्याकरणशास्त्रप्रवेशकक्षायाः 49तमं दिनम्। इदानीम् अत्र विसर्गसन्धिप्रकरणे सर्वदा प्रथमं सोपानं तु सकारः एव भवति। सकारात् एव प्रक्रिया आरभ्यते इति ज्ञातव्यम्। अतः इतः एव सकारात् एव आरभ्यते, कदापि ऋत्वात् वा विसर्गात् वा प्रक्रिया न आरभ्यते प्रथमम्। In the same way, there is another entry point. The first entry point is always the sakara, and the second entry point where the prakriya can start is the repa. So that means these are the only two possible entry points for this entire Visarga Sandhi Prakaranam. One, it can start as sakara. It can go sakara, rutvam, repa, visarga, sakara. I'm saying this part for Ramas Tishtati. Or the another entry point is it can directly start from repa. Because if in the case of Ramas Chinoti, the starting point already has sakara. So we start the prakriya with sakara. And there are cases where the prakriya can start from repa. So if it starts from repa the prakriya starts. Then the possible forms are repa can become lopa, or it can get into visarga. Then further visarga can become sakara or upatmani or jivamuli or visarga. But if you start a prakriya with repa, then it cannot get yakaradesha or it cannot get ukaradesha. So you are able to get it, right? So because from repa it can go only forward. So from repa it can become it can become visarga or it can become lopa, or from visarga it can go one of these forms if there are any conditions satisfied. Okay, so there are only two entry points in overall this in the Visarga Sandhi Prakaranam. One is it starts with sakara or it can start with repa. And 99% it always starts from sakara. So there is no doubt. You should always start from sakara. There are very, very few cases, selected cases, where it can start from repa. The reason is there are few words in Sanskrit, they end with repa. तत्र कानिचन प्रातिपदिकानि रेफान्तानि प्रातिपदिकानि सन्ति, तादृशानां कृते विसर्गसन्धिप्रक्रिया रेफात् आरभ्यते इति ज्ञातव्यम्. अत्र कानि तानि प्रातिपदिकानि इमानि एव. अत्र प्रातर्, पुनर्, अन्तर्, स्वर्, गीर्, पुनः ऋकारान्तशब्दानां सम्बोधनारूपं हे मातः, तत्र हे मातर्, पुनः ऋकारान्तशब्दानां षष्ठी रूपं मातुः, तत्र मातुर् इति रूपम्. अतः अत्र सर्वत्र अपि एतत् प्रातिपदिकं नास्ति. मातर् अथवा मातुर् एतत् प्रातिपदिकं नास्ति. प्रक्रियायां मध्ये किञ्चन रूपं तत्. परन्तु तत्र सकारः नैव दृश्यते. अतः प्रातर्, पुनः, पुनर्, अन्तर्, स्वर्, गीर्, मातर्, मातुर् इत्यत्र सर्वत्र अपि अन्ते रेफः दृश्यते साक्षात्. अतः तत्र प्रक्रिया सकारात् न आरभ्यते, रेफात् एव प्रक्रिया आरभ्यते. पुनः यदि प्रातर् इति भवति चेत् पुनः तत्र प्रातः भवितुमर्हति, नो चेत् प्राता तथा लोपः भवितुमर्हति, नो चेत् प्रातर् तादृशमेव तद्रूपं भवितुमर्हति. अतः if you take the entry point as repa for these shabdas, it can go only forward from this point. It can get into lopa, or it can get into visarga or any other forms. But neither it will never go into yakara or ukara. But if it starts from sakara, it can get into any of the forms. And 99% in the language, it starts with sakara. And very selected cases like this, only for rikaranta shabdas for few forms, it can start with repa. And there are few pratipadikams with natively they end by refa. So in those cases, it can start with repa. So otherwise, for everything else, it will start from sakara. All right. The next one is we'll see the sutrams that enable this flow. Okay, the first one, sasajishoruhu. Okay, sasajishoruhu anena sakarasya rutvam bhavati. Tadvateva ऋत्वस्य उकारादेशः अतो रोरप्लुते तथा अशिच इत्येताभ्यां सूत्राभ्यां ऋत्वस्य उकारादेशः भवितुम् अर्हति. Okay, if one of the conditions of these two sutrams satisfied, then the Rutvam can become Ukaradesha. If the Sutra conditions doesn't satisfy, then Rutvam cannot get into Utvam or cannot get the form of Ukara. तथा ऋत्वस्य यकारादेशः कदा भवति? भो भगो अगो अपूर्वस्य योषि. अनेन सूत्रेण ऋत्वस्य यकारादेशः भवति. पुनः तत्र if you don't get these sutram conditions satisfied, then the other possible form is only the Rutvasya Lopa, then it becomes Refa. So there is no sutram on this path, because if these two sutram doesn't get kicked in, then automatically the leftover path is this. So here with regular it sanya prakaranam, upadesha jananasika it, then the ukarasya lopaha ataha repaha avasishyate. That's the final form here. पुनः यकारस्य लोपः हलि सर्वेषाम् इत्यनेन सूत्रेण भवति. Again, you should see whether hali sarvesham conditions satisfy. If it's satisfied, it can go till lopa. If that sutra conditions doesn't satisfy, it will stop. The prakriya stops at yakara. But the prakriya cannot stop at the blue point, because after rutvam, either it should go with ukara or it should go in the path of yakara. If those conditions doesn't satisfy, it will automatically fall back to the lopa path and the it sanya prakarana path. Then it gets into रेफ. पुनः रेपस्य द्विधा भवितुमर्हति, विसर्गः अथवा लोपः. तत्र रोरि इति एकं सूत्रं, तथा ड्रालोपे पूर्वस्य दीर्घोणः. It's not two different sutram, it's the same sutram, works in a sequence. If Rory gets into action, then automatically ड्रालोपे पूर्वस्य दीर्घोणः, that also gets in. So Rory says the repasya lopaha. If lopa happens, the purva varnasya dirghaha. That's said by the second sutra. So it can go always, these two sutrams can go together. It's not like the Rory happens or the dra lope purvasya dirghaha. That's not the way it works here. If Rory kicks in, automatically the second sutra, dra lope purvasya dirghaha, that kicks in. But in the case of Rutvam to Ukara, any one of the sutrams can get in. So either ato rorapluta plute or hashicha. Any one of the sutrams can transform the rutvam to ukara, but repa to lopa happens only by Rory. And if Rory happens, then dra lope purvasya dirghonaha, that sutra will also work. And next one is other possible path is visarga, that is by kharavasaniya visarjaniyaha. If Karavasaniya Visarjaniyaha or Rory does not apply at the point of Repa, then Prakriya stops at Repa. Like Munir Gachati. So in the Munir Gachati, the Rory does not happen because there is no Repa following Visarga, or Karavasaniya Visarjaniya doesn't kick in because there is no Karvarna after that. Then the Prakriya stops at Repa. So the moment you reach Repa, you should start applying one of these two sutrams. Whether Rory applies in this place or Karavasaniya Visarjaniya applies in this place. If those two doesn't apply, we can stop the Prakriya at Repa. If one of them applies, one of them is applicable there, then you should continue that flow. So now Karavasaniya Visarjaniya, that makes the Repa into Visarga. Now at this point, Visarga can get into Sakara, can become Sakara with Visarjaniyasya Saha Sutra. So Visarjaniyasya Saha says, based on certain conditions, the Visarga can become Sakara. And again, Sharpare Visarjaniyaha or Vashari. If any one of these two sutrams applicable after Visarga, then the Visarga can again become a Visarga. So as it was discussed earlier, after Karavasaniya Visarjaniyaha, the Visarga happens. After the Visarga, we should evaluate whether Sharpare Visarjaniyaha or Vashare is applicable at that point. If it is applicable, then the Visarga will be again transformed into second Visarga. If they don't apply there, then the first Visarga is the final product. Then again, for the remaining two parts, we have already seen the sutram, that is Kupoho Kapoche. With this sutram, the Visarga can become either Jihva Mulya or Upatmanya. Yeah, these are the overall total sutrams. If you see overall Visarga Prakaram as it is given in the Laghu Siddhanta Kaumudi, it might be confusing, but if you see it with the flow chart, it might be easier. Okay, so this covers overall 13 sutrams. So Sasadrishoruhu, Atorora Plutada Plute, Ashicha, Bho Bhago Apurvasya Yoshi, Hari Sarvesham, Rori, Dralopasya Purvasya Dirgonaha, Kharvasanyo Visarjaniyaha, Visarjaniyasya Saha, Sharpare Visarjaniyaha, Vashari, Kuppoho Kapaucha. Alright, so there are few more, 3 sutrams, sorry, okay, there are 12 sutrams, it covers 12 sutrams. There are 3 additional sutrams that doesn't fit into this flow by default because they are the special sutrams on some special scenarios. This is etadhoho sulopo akora nyai samase hali sochi lope chet pada puranam anantaram rosupi. These 3 sutrams they happen on a specific cases like etadoho and sochi. These 2 sutrams happen at the saha and eshaha. In those places there are some special rules apply. And rosupi again this is again specifically for ahan shabda. Okay, because there are some exceptional cases, it doesn't fit into this regular flow, so we have some special sutram. There are 3. So overall, 15 sutrams we are going to study in this current Visarga Sandhi Prakarana. So we can talk if there are any questions around this. And from the next session, we will start we'll start reading on sutras one by one as we did in the Hal Sandhi Prakarana. So I spent a little longer time on this Visarga Sandhi flow. That's because 2 reasons. One is the process is completely different than what we studied in earlier levels like Kovida, Gita, Pravesha. And at the same time, the sutras, if we study the sutras in the Ashtadhyayi Krama or in the Laghu Siddhanta Kaumudi Krama, both will be confusing actually, especially for this Prakaranam. Because for Ach Sandhi Prakaranam, you can go in the Laghu Siddhanta Kaumudi Krama. For Hal Sandhi Prakaranam, you should go in the Ashtadhyayi Krama because that's in the Tripadi. And especially for Visarga Sandhi, I would suggest you should remember this flowchart. So this makes the job very easier. Otherwise, so if you applied Karavasani Visarjaniya and made Refa into Visarga, then from there only it can we need to evaluate only 4 sutrams from the Visarjaniyasya Saha or Kupoho Kapocha or Sharpare Visarjaniyaha Vashari. We should just evaluate only 4 of them. If you don't know this flow chart, you should actually evaluate all of them, including Atorora Plota Plute also, because that's actually in the very beginning of the flow chart. But if you know the flowchart, you can skip all of those sutrams and you can directly apply what is applicable there. So in that way, it is helpful. So for Visarga Sandhi Prakaranam, we'll go with this flowchart and accordingly we'll take the sutrams in the order. That's one thing I need to tell at this point. Astu, dhanyavadaha, punaha milishyamah.